electric vehicle world, there are generally two types of EVs out there. There are the so-called compliance cars, limited range vehicles that are only produced and sold for specific key market areas where zero emission mandates and other legislation means that automakers must sell and produce electric cars or not be allowed to sell their most profitable vehicles, i.e. SUVs and pickup trucks. Those vehicles have sub 100-mile range, often don't have rapid charging capabilities, and are often a poor choice for most car buyers. Then there are the long-range models, the Tesla Model S's, Model X's, and Chevrolet Bolt EVs of the world. They can do more than 200 miles per charge, they have rapid charging capabilities, but they also have a much higher sticker price. And in the middle, there's been nothing. There's been no truly affordable vehicle that offers more than 100 miles of range or 120 miles of range and that has premium features but doesn't have a premium price tag. That is until the Nissan LEAF came along, their second generation LEAF, or as they like to call it here in the US, the 2018 Nissan LEAF. And I'm here on Nissan's media drive day just to get a little bit of a sniff to feel how this car really fits into the market. Nissan says it fits into the gap between the compliance car market and the high-end affordable vehicles. Does it? Well, let's find out. This car is not designed, says Nissan, as a long-range car. It's designed as a car that happens to be electric and happens to be a very affordable vehicle. Prices start at just around the $30,000 mark. And if you were to buy the entry-level 2018 Nissan LEAF S, you'll find it's actually cheaper than the outgoing 2017 Nissan LEAF S. You'll get some safety features as standard, such as the forward collision braking assist, and you also have adaptive cruise control as standard. If you want the Nissan ProPilot though, you're going to have to go for the high-end Nissan LEAF SV, which has the ProPilot as an optional extra. So you're going to be spending much more for that model than you would be for the entry-level S. But as Nissan has said many times, lots of people are quite happy with the Nissan LEAF S. They don't want all of the bells and whistles and technology of the higher end vehicles. They just want a car that is affordable to buy and affordable to run. Talk a little bit about the technology in the new 2018 Nissan LEAF. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay are standard on the SV and the SL. You don't get the touchscreen display on the S, but you do get it on the two higher level trims, just like the first generation Nissan LEAF. But perhaps more interesting for prospective LEAF buyers is the improvements that have been made to the CarWings system. I don't mean CarWings, I mean Nissan Connect EV. If you remember, about a year ago, CarWings was rebranded to Nissan Connect EV, and I'm sure the reason behind that was, one, that CarWings, as it originally stood in the original Nissan LEAF, was absolutely terrible, never worked, was very unreliable, told you that charging stations existed in places that they didn't, was just completely useless, really. And then the other reason, obviously, is that Nissan has now implemented more of the CarWings-like telematics system across the rest of the Nissan family lineup. And so what we've got here is Nissan Connect EV, the standard version for gasoline vehicles being Nissan Connect EV adding some extra features. You can set the cabin temperature for your new 2018 Nissan LEAF and precondition the cabin before you leave, but you can actually set the temperature at which you're going to be wanting the cabin to be. You can also use the new Nissan Connect EV to find out where your car is, which is very useful. There's also a bunch of features designed for parents, so you can set a geographic limitation on the vehicle. So if you've got a teenager and you only want them to use the car to get to school and back, and they're their friend's house or their boyfriend or girlfriend's house is outside of that, you could actually set a little boundary so that the car notifies you if it goes out of that predefined geographic range. I don't know if that's a good thing. I think maybe parents need to learn to trust their teenagers a bit more. I think my teenagers would be very upset if I did that. There's also a valet mode. Obviously, if you're giving your car to a valet for parking or cleaning and you don't want them to tear up the strip with your car, honestly, they're not going to. I mean, this is faster than the old Leaf, but it's nothing to get excited about. There's also the capability to remote, obviously, start charging. You still can't remote stop charging, which is a bit of a shame, but now you can use your Alexa skills to activate all of this from Alexa, Amazon Alexa. I'm assuming that Nissan will eventually implement it for Google Home as well. It makes sense that that's what's going to happen. I haven't asked, but one can hope. And to celebrate that, Nissan left Amazon Alexas in everybody's room last night. The old ones, the ones that are going out that are dirt cheap. But it's appreciated, Nissan. Thank you. Yes. I'm in the high-end Nissan LEAF SL. It does have the ProPilot assist technology, and how it works is there's a little button on the right-hand side of the redesigned steering wheel. It's a different steering wheel design to the old Nissan LEAF, but it's a design that I've seen in other Nissans. And the ProPilot assist, you turn it on, and it gives you a display in the dash of the road ahead, and you have either lane markings, and if the car detects the two lane markings that it needs, one on the left, one on the right, those lane markings turn green and the car will keep you in lane. Now at the moment, it doesn't appear to have picked up the lane markings because I actually wandered a little bit and it didn't detect where I was in the lane, but now it appears to have done. Now if you take your hands off the steering wheel, which is I'm just doing now, the system will alert you, and then it will tell you to put your hands back on the wheel. And that's because this technology is not designed to be hands-off. This is a non-autonomous system, and Nissan is very clear about this. This is a safety system. It's an active safety system. It's designed to keep you driving safely on the road. It's designed to keep you positioned in the middle of your lane. It is not an autopilot. It is not autonomous driving. It's kind of a level 2, level 3 autonomous feature. How does the system work? Well, there are sensors on the front of the vehicle. There's a radar sensor in the front bumper that helps determine the distance of the car in front. And then there's a visual optical sensor, which is made by Mobileye, and that sits just behind the rear view mirror. And the rear view mirror, obviously you get a fairly good view of the road from that vantage point on the windshield. And so the camera is looking for those two lines, the lines that mark your lane. But if you've got any reason for the car not to be able to see the lines, it will not work. And there's a really long list. It won't work if it's raining, won't work if there's too much glare from the sun or from water on the road. It won't work if you've got your windscreen wipers on, anything other than intermittent. It won't work if it's cold, if there's ice and snow around. It won't work if the road markings are not clear. So if you live somewhere where there's lots of leaves or the road markings are very faded, it won't work. It struggles with high contrast situations sometimes, if there's lots of shadows, it doesn't necessarily always work there. If you take your hands off the steering wheel and then ignore the car's prompts to put your hands back on, it will eventually safely stop the car with the hazard lights on and bring you to a complete stop. That is a situation there where it didn't like it. There was a turn lane coming up just as you came off a corner, and the car was following the median, and then it didn't know where the lanes were because it was a little tiny turn lane, and it really got upset there. So this reiterates that you should only really use ProPilot as an assistive technology, not as a way of having the car drive for you. In terms of operation of the ProPilot, it feels very much like other semi-autonomous assistance features that I've encountered in other vehicles. There's nothing kind of revolutionary about it. I haven't had a chance to test the stop and go features in traffic, but it's very easy to use. It's very intuitive to use. Some people may find it a little bit counterintuitive because they're not used to it. The other thing to bear in mind is, you know, when you come off a freeway, you need to go back into manual mode. If you brake, you deactivate it, and then you also have to use it manually when you want to change lanes. So there's no automatic lanes changing. Now we've stopped here for some roadworks, it's time for me to talk to you a little bit about the e-pedal system. The one pedal driving on the Nissan LEAF is activated by a switch in the center console. It operates very much like the single pedal driving that Tesla offers and Chevrolet offers and BMW offers in various guises. It's very good, but what makes this particular e-pedal driving different is that the LEAF is situationally aware. So the car knows, for example, if you're going downhill, and will adjust its amount of regenerative braking for the situation that you find yourself in. If you're going uphill, obviously it will apply less regenerative braking when you lift off. If you're going downhill, it will apply more. It's also true for the hill hold function. You see, when you come to a complete stop and you've got e-brake or e-pedal, enabled, what happens is that the car will automatically apply friction brakes when you come to a complete stop to hold the car. It won't let the car roll back or roll forward, depending whether you're uphill or downhill. It will bring the car to a complete and absolute stop. You do not have to press the brake pedal at all, but it's a nice feature that it does engage the brakes, because it means that you don't have to worry about being a victim of a shunt, which personally, that's actually happened to me. When I used to drive a Toyota Prius, I got so used to just coasting to a stop and letting the car just sit there that I actually would sit there with my foot on the brake ever so lightly. And one day someone ran into the back of me and pushed me forwards because I didn't have enough braking force on the wheels. Now Nissan says it's figured that out, and that's all good. And so far it seems to be working. I don't think I've touched the brake pedal once in the last 20 minutes or so. So it's very impressive. Well done, Nissan. Let's talk about the battery. We haven't got to that yet. 40 kilowatt hours, it takes the same physical space as the original 2011 Nissan LEAF. There's more batteries squeezed in. That's not actually true. There's more energy dense cells squeezed into the battery, and Nissan gave us a little infographic showing how instead of making 4 battery cells into a module, they're now squeezing 8 in. And so the number of modules they've got in a pack has changed. They used to have a higher number of modules but less cells per module. Now they're using more cells per module but fewer modules. The chemistry of the battery has changed as well. So this is actually a 4th generation Nissan battery chemistry. The batteries are produced for Nissan in the old Nissan battery factories. If you remember, there was a buyout earlier this year of Nissan's battery making facilities at the Smyrna, Tennessee and Sunderland, and I presume the Apama facility in Japan. Nissan no longer owns those battery manufacturing facilities, but it's still getting the batteries for the LEAFs and the EMV200s from there. And as far as I can tell, that will continue. Nissan was a little touchy on the subject when I tried to talk about future batteries, but that's where we're at right now. In terms of upgrades, for those of you who've got existing LEAFs, I've been told that there is no upgrade path to 40 kilowatt hours for the older Nissan LEAFs, and there's no 30 kilowatt hour upgrade for those who've got 24 kilowatt hour cars. That said, I think Nissan will continue to support the batteries in those original cars for many years to come, and I also think we're probably going to see the latest chemistry being used, although maybe not the latest capacities. So even though if you decide to opt for a battery replacement, you may end up with a 24 kilowatt hour battery pack like your original LEAF, the longevity of that replacement pack is going to be far, far better than the original battery pack that you had in your car. As somebody who has a LEAF, an early LEAF, I've got a 2013 LEAF with battery degradation, and we had a 2011 LEAF before that with battery degradation, I'm kind of hoping that at some point we get a battery replacement for our Leaf, but obviously that's for another video. Another question I know you all want to ask revolves around battery life and longevity and warranties, etc., etc., especially given the problems that Nissan had with the first generation Leaf. And I should say here, I should accept here, that I am somebody who decided not to wait for the second generation Leaf because I was worried about the battery life. Having owned not one but two first generation Nissan Leafs, both of which experienced battery degradation at around the 50,000 mile mark, I wasn't prepared to sink money into another Nissan and have that battery degradation an issue. Like its predecessor, you can see where the degradation of the batteries really are. So you can see what the age of the battery and what the battery health is through the dashboard. Unlike the first generation Nissan Leaf, however, it is something that you have to go into the menus to look at. So it's not staring you at the face all the time. But you can check in on your battery health. And I think some people will find that useful. I think some people will find that petrifying, terrifying, and will never go there. If you've got a brand new 2018 Nissan Leaf that you are going to be bringing home and charging at home, there are some important numbers that you should know. First off, if you've got a 3.3 kilowatt level 2 charger, you'll find that the Leaf charges from empty to full in around 12 hours. That's on 3.3 kilowatts. If you use a 6 kilowatt level 2 charger, it will take about 7.5 hours from empty to full. And if you're at a rapid charger, a CHAdeMO DC quick charging station, bear in mind the 50 kilowatt DC quick charging stations, and I'll come to that in a second, you'll be able to get about 88 miles of range in half an hour. You won't get from empty to 80% full like the old car in half an hour, but you will get more range as a consequence because the battery pack is bigger, and therefore the car doesn't have to ramp down charging as quickly as it does with the 24 kilowatt hour packs, and that's very important to know. At the moment, the Nissan Leaf works with 50 kilowatt CHAdeMO DC quick charging, but it can accept up to 150 kilowatts of CHAdeMO DC quick charging, which is enough to give you almost a full charge in 30 minutes. The problem is there aren't any 150 kilowatt CHAdeMO DC quick charging stations at the moment in the wild. At least I don't know of any. So it's a little bit like the Chevrolet Bolt. The Chevrolet Bolt EV will take up to 80 kilowatts of charging through its CCS quick charge port, but there are no 80 kilowatt charging stations. So it's a bit of a moot point right now. Now, if you want to charge your 2018 Nissan Leaf off a 110 volt outlet using the supplied charge cord that comes with your car, you can do that. It'll take 35 hours. So why did I mention level 1 last? Well, first of all, you shouldn't really be charging a Nissan Leaf off a level 1 charger. You shouldn't be charging any car off a level 1 charger unless you're doing what I'm doing right now, which is parking at an airport. My Chevrolet Bolt is back in Portland, Oregon. It's plugged into a level 1 charging station and it will be charged by the time I get back. There's no hurry for me to get it charged, so I'm just letting the car just gently top itself off. So the other reason why I bring up the level 1 charging last is because Nissan's included a new level 1, level 2 charging cable. Yes, I said that right. Level 1 and level 2. It's standard on the SV and SL, it's optional on the S, and it allows you to plug into either a 110 volt outlet and get that emergency charge when you visit Grandma, or you can just plug into a compatible NEMA 1450 socket and charge at 240 volts, just like your friends back in the UK. We have 240 volts everywhere. Americans don't. I don't know why, but now you can make use of 240 volts in your North American garage if you have a dryer socket or something similar. So yay, and the reason that's amazing is because it means you don't have to spend extra money on a dedicated charging station in your home. Should you buy a dedicated charging station? Well, I'm still erring on the side of yes, because if you have a proper charging station put in and it is electrically installed and certified by your local electrician, it means that there's less risk of anything going wrong. If you're using a NEMA 1450 socket that you put in and you got it checked by an electrician, go right ahead, use a NEMA 1450 socket. But if you're using a NEMA 1450 socket that was in the house when you bought it and may have been put in sort of like 20 years ago, then you might want to get it checked out before you plug your brand new Nissan Leaf in. I'm just saying, electrical safety and all that. I've been electrocuted. It's not nice. With 110 kilowatts powering this car's motor, the 2018 Nissan LEAF, technically on paper, has a little bit more power than its predecessor. But honestly, the way that the acceleration and power delivery has been programmed in by Nissan means that this car doesn't feel particularly peppy. Now, in terms of driving position, I've noticed that the driving position is not particularly comfortable. It feels like you're sitting a little higher up, maybe a little bit more SUV-ish than you might be for the previous generation LEAF. The steering wheel, unfortunately, only just has a tilt adjust. There's no forwards and backwards adjustment, which is really bad on Nissan's part, I think. But other than that, if you've driven the first generation Nissan LEAF, you'll find there's a lot of familiarity here with this car, other than, of course, the additional range and the added extra features. So in terms of ride quality, the 2018 Nissan LEAF is nothing to get excited about. It's very much like the 2017 LEAF. Maybe there's just a little bit more bounciness. This has got uprated springs in it because the car itself is about 110 kilos heavier than its predecessor because of those extra batteries. 110 kilos, for those of you who are watching in the US, is about 220 pounds. There's not a whole amount of body roll when you're going through corners if you're driving at a reasonable speed, but you do notice the bounciness if you're going over bridges and whatnot. And I think it feels a little bit more bouncy and a little bit more squidgy. There's not the direct feeling that you get when you're in the Chevrolet Bolt. And I'm comparing this to the Chevrolet Bolt primarily because, you know, it's a car that's a slightly more expensive, but I think will cross-shop against the Nissan LEAF, despite what Nissan says. I don't think it will cross-shop against the Model 3 because Model 3 is a much more premium car than the Nissan LEAF. So I've been reliably informed that the headroom in the back is not great. There's someone in the back right now who's 5'7", who's only got a little bit of space between the top of their head and the roof line. So anybody taller than that would be struggling. But remember, this is a family car. This is a vehicle that's designed for, you know, 2 parents, 2-3 kids, and you can get dogs in the back. That family car feel does permeate throughout the cabin. There's nothing here that says high-end tech nerdiness like the original LEAF. You know, they've changed the speedometer to this analog speedometer, although you can have a digital readout on the left of the dash as well. The cabin just feels very much like a middle-of-the-road, affordable family hatchback. It's got that Versa note feel to it. It doesn't necessarily scream $30,000 car, but it's very pleasant to spend time in. So, like the previous generation LEAF, there's a cluster of buttons down by my left knee. I mean, this is an evolutionary rather than a revolutionary change for the 2018 LEAF. It's a new vehicle. It has been built from the ground up, but it's been built from the ground up using the previous generation LEAF as a kind of template. So if you're familiar with the 2011 through 2017 LEAF, you'll be very at home in the cockpit of this car. Yes, the dashboard's changed considerably, but the rest of it feels, you know, fairly similar. You've got the same cluster of buttons to the left of your knee. There's an additional one now, the parking assistance button. That allows you to autonomously park when you are in the car. That is a feature that's been around for years on other cars. I mean, I remember having a 2007 Toyota Prius that had that function, and it used to freak everybody out. But now it's become a fairly standard feature, and this car has it if you opt for the high-end SV package and you have the ProPilot assist. There's also blind spot monitoring, which is very nice. Very useful on freeways, especially if you drive in California or anywhere really that has a large high traffic volume. The center console has been revamped as well. Everything's been brought up, and there is now these flying buttress things going on here by your knee. I'm not a fan of those, but I like the moved auxiliary input and USB socket. That's a lot nicer up there. The seat heaters have been moved, so you can now heat your seats from the center console rather than having them down by the cup holders. The cup holders are now closer to you in a more conventional position as if you were, you know, driving any other car on the market. But the downside to that is that the center console box by the armrest box is a lot smaller now as well. If you opt for the high-end SV, you do get the option of a 4-way power adjustable driver's seat. You have manual adjustment in all the other trim models, and you have manual adjustment for the front passenger seat. Now, the seating position, as I've commented, is not the best, but I'm sure I could get used to it, given enough time. You also get heated front seats if you have the all-weather package. There is no option in the US for heated rear seats. The reason, Nissan said, was to help keep the sticker price down. However, if you live in Canada, you can opt for heated rear seats. So I'm expecting at some point some enterprising North American Leaf owner will purchase a Canadian kit to add heated rear seats to their US spec Leaf. Obviously, if you're somewhere else in the world, specifications and trim packages are always slightly different. So I'm basing this today on the North American Leaf, which is the one that I'm driving. Obviously, the Leaf has already launched, this particular model year Leaf has already launched in Europe, and the US and Canada are getting it kind of last. The reason for that, Nissan wasn't really very clear on. So has Nissan's gamble played off? I mean, the 2018 Nissan Leaf really is just a family hatchback with a $30,000 price tag, or higher if you go for the higher trim models, that happens to have an electric drivetrain. I mean, that's all it is. And it's a very bold move from Nissan to market the Leaf in that way. When Nissan unveiled the Leaf in Japan, the way it was unveiled was, this is a car that happens to be electric, not this is an electric car. And I get that feeling from this car very much. It's just another car. So if you want a car that feels like any other car out there, but happens to be electric, maybe this is a car for you. If you want a car that feels like a Tesla or a Bolt and is very quick off the line and has great acceleration and you know, you're squealing the tires at every opportunity, maybe this isn't the car for you. But if you want a car to commute and get you to the shops, take the kids to school, run some errands at the weekend, and maybe do those occasional long distance trips and make use of the increasingly comprehensive CHAdeMO DC quick charging network that exists around the world, then this could be a car for you. And I would postulate that even in those really extreme 1% edge case use scenarios, where you just can't take the Leaf because 150 miles isn't enough, you could probably rent a car for a week or so, but still save based on the purchase price and the sticker cost, because this is a lot cheaper. This is $7,500 cheaper than the Bolt. That's a lot of money. But this is a truly affordable, family-friendly car. Leading, environmentally friendly, affordable family car. Well, okay. Is it leading? Not anymore. Not in terms of range. Maybe with the tech. The e-pedal is incredibly effective and impressive, and I like it. The ProPilot less so. I'm one of these people who thinks that, you know, if we're going to have autonomous vehicles, they need to be fully level 5 autonomous and not somewhere in between, because that's when we start to see problems. Is it environmentally friendly? Well, seems to be. I mean, it's electric. As long as you charge it from renewable sources of electricity, it should be fine. And as long as the car itself has a reasonably good wheel-to-well score, then yeah, that's good. Is it family friendly? You bet. This is a car that I could imagine taking my kids and my dogs in and not having any issues about them tearing up the interior, which is something I can't always say of the Bolt, and I don't think I could say of the Tesla Model 3. It's more durable. It's Japanese. It just does what it says on the tin. But at the same time, it makes it just a little teensy, tiny bit boring. Sorry, Nissan. Don't send me hate mail. So that's it. You should go and check this car out at your local dealership. The Nissan's already offering a concierge test drive setup where you can contact Nissan and have someone turn up at your office or your home or your gym or wherever, and they will let you drive the car. You don't have to drive to a dealership. And I think Nissan did that for two reasons. One, it means that a specialist gets to tell you about the car rather than a dealer called Bob in a dealership who really doesn't care about electric cars. So that's a smart move on Nissan's part. But also, it means that Nissan gets some pre-sales before the car goes mainstream. Some dealerships will be very welcoming towards it. I'm sure some won't be. And you should go and test drive this car. Make your own mind up. 150 miles translates to around, 300 kilometers. That is a decent range for any car, really, in the Kiwi market. And so hopefully with the increasing CHAdeMO DC quick charging stations that are coming online, we'll see that come to a car dealership near you very, very soon. And the more people we can get off petrol and onto electric, the absolute better. So that's it. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.